Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lorna, and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you. And I'm sure you're wondering why I'm sitting on a chair like this, and I'm not going to tell you yet right now. Maybe later on, but anyway, let me kick off by saying to thank the committee so much for asking me to speak. And I know you have a choice of many speakers, and it is such a privilege to be asked. And I'm not here to help you or to impart any great wisdom. I'm here because God thinks I need an awful lot of help, and I get to share at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, you know, Howard talked about it this morning, and Kay talked about it last night, about our preconceived ideas. And a few years ago, I was asked to speak in Eureka Springs, and my friends in New York said, "You're going to Arkansas?" And I must admit, I had a lot of trepidation. I thought I was going into this very sort of deliverance place, and you know, everyone would have their eyes just a little too wide apart or a little too close together. And I was a bit nervous, and but I got to Eureka Springs, and it was absolutely fabulous. I couldn't get over the beauty of the state, and that was a great weekend. It was Easter weekend some years ago, I'm not too sure. So when Pete called me this time and asked me to speak here, I said, yes, I'd love to come to Arkansas. And you know, people say to me, "You live in New York? In the city?" I say yes, and they say, "Do you like it?" So, you know, we all have our preconceived notions. And I also want to thank whoever it was, the welcome bunny, for putting such a lovely bag in my room. It was a really clever welcome bag, wonderful things in it. And I also, of course, want to thank Rasa for being such a great hostess. And one of the things I wanted to do when I came to Arkansas was I wanted to ride. And a horse. And she really went to great lengths and made these arrangements for me to ride. I was supposed to go this morning, and as you saw, you know, thunder and lightning and all that, I didn't get to go. But this afternoon I went out to a thoroughbred stable and looked at the horses and had a wonderful time. But next time to ride. And thank you, Rasa, for all that you've done, and picking me up at the airport and taking me tomorrow, and la-di-la-di-la. And some of you are probably, by this time, are thinking, "Oh, I didn't look at my watch. I must make sure." So I started at 7:45. All right. Some of you are probably thinking, that doesn't sound like a New York accent. And I always say, no, it's a West Texas accent, actually. So I want to tell a story that I haven't told when I speak, and I just said it in a meeting the other day in New York, and people just loved it. They were intrigued. It's a little bit of AA history. So let me just get it so that it's on a tape. A few years ago, the original manuscript of the big book came up for sale at Sotheby's. Sotheby's is one of the big auction houses in New York, and actually I used to work there. But it came up for sale, and it was the original manuscript. It was typewritten pages, double space, and all Bill's notations and notes were in the margins. It was a phenomenal document. And Sotheby's realized it was an important piece of American history and an important paper. And they devoted about 6 pages in the catalog to it. But it was in a catalog with many other papers and books and things like that. And they put an estimate on it of 300,000 to 500,000. And but the day of the sale came, and it was squashed off into a very small auction room. It wasn't in the main auction room at all, but the place was packed with AAs. And the auctioneer was not the person who was the expert in the department. He wasn't the person that had catalogued it. He was just the auctioneer. He was executing the sale. Anyway, the gavel came down at just over 1.5 million. And everyone in the room is gasping and they're crying, and you know how emotional we all are. And I looked at the auctioneer and I saw him turn to the record keeper and he said, "Has this guy written anything else?" I thought you'd like that. It's wonderful. So I want to briefly qualify, and then I want to talk about the last 2 years for myself. My husband finally walked out the door, and I thought it was the most interesting thing he'd ever done. And I was dreadfully upset. I wanted him back. I was devastated. And I really wanted my marriage. I mean, meanwhile, I'm having an affair with someone else, but that's just a tad. It's really not important. And he shouldn't be upset about that. Slightly unmanageable. But anyway, I was with a friend one evening, and we were in a sauna, and she said to me that the previous night she had gone to an Al-Anon meeting. And she said, "You know, Lorna, all the women sound just like you." So something clicked. And the very next night, I too found myself in a meeting of Al-Anon. And at this meeting, it was suggested that one go to open AA meetings. So I'm not one to mess about. I really wanted to get this husband. So the following night, I sussed it all out. It was long before, computers or anything. I called up the intergroup office and I found out where there was a meeting that people like me who were not alcoholics could go. So that evening, after work, I did something that I always used to do. I went to Sotheby's in those days was on Madison Avenue, right across the road from the Carlisle Hotel. And I like to go to Bemelman's Bar in the Carlisle Hotel after work. And I love to drink on an empty stomach. I don't want to eat the peanuts. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want anything. I want that belt of vodka and orange juice, that woof. And I always say that's why I like New York AA, because we don't fiddle about. We don't, read how it works and do all that stuff. We say the Serenity Prayer because it's faster, and we have a qualification. We have someone tells their story immediately. It's like, and that's the way I was about drinking. So anyway, I'm in Bemelman's Bar. I've knocked back a couple of screwdrivers, and I say to my friends, "Ooh, it's almost 7:30. I'm going to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll be back." So I toddled up the road to this meeting called Lenox Hill, and in those days it was considered the blue blood silk stocking meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, all the Park Avenue ladies and the lawyers and all that lot were there. And it was an open AA meeting. So I sat down, and this fellow got up on the stage, and he stood at a podium, and leaning up against the podium so that the audience or the group could see was a plaque, and in AA writing, that Gothic script that we have, it said, "But for the grace of God." So I suppose what one was supposed to do was look at this poor wretch standing at the podium and realize that but for the grace of God, you could be him. And so he said, "My name's Don, and I'm an alcoholic." And I can remember thinking, well, good God, we don't all want to know. I mean, surely there's some things you keep to yourself. I mean, does your mother know you're one of those? So anyway, but nevertheless, no matter how shocked I was at his openness, I mean, I am British after all, I was intrigued and fascinated with his story, and I was laughing with everyone else and, moved, and I didn't understand that was called identification. And after Don got down, 2 other guys got up and told equally as fascinating stories. And I think I can end it there, because that, I feel, is what qualifies me as an alcoholic. I think if you like coming to these meetings and listening to how people threw up on their employer or their client, lost their jobs, wrecked their marriages, had car accidents, woke up in bed with strange people in strange places, and you find it interesting, there's something the matter with you. And not only do I find the stories fascinating, I like to get on the phone and talk about it. I like to go to coffee shops after the meetings and talk about it. It's endlessly interesting what you got up to and what I got up to. And so I think that ends my qualification there. So I was hanging around AA for a while, and one day this lover that I'd been with, I was going to have brunch with him, and I arranged to meet him, and I had gotten up that morning and I'd fixed myself a carafe of vodka and orange juice, and I poured myself a tumbler full. And as I drank this drink, it hit me, oh my God, I'm drinking in the morning. This is a morning drink. And there's a saying, an Oriental saying that says, actually that's not politically correct anymore, is it? Asian, yeah, I know, oh God, an ancient Chinese saying. And have you ever heard of a modern Chinese saying? No. But anyway, it was... that says the beginning of wisdom is to call something by its correct name. Now, I'd had a drink many times in the morning before, but I called it brunch, I called it a gallery opening, I called it toasting the bride, I called it Wednesday or something, but I never had labeled it that I was drinking in the morning. This particular morning, I said, this is a morning drink. And I was having brunch with this lover, and I got in the shower, and I couldn't let the glass go from my hand. And I was, soaping myself, trying to keep it out of the spray. And I think the angels looked down from heaven and went, oy vey, this one. So I went off for brunch with the lover, and it was just ghastly. And I ended up on the steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And I was sitting there with loads of people. It was a summer Sunday in August, and I could see life happening all around me, and I couldn't get to it. I knew it was there, and I was in the midst of many people, and I never felt so screamingly alone in all my life. I mean, I'd been alone, but I hadn't penetrated. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And the voice said to me, go to one of those meetings. And I went to one, and there was a woman qualifying. And I think it was my higher power in the form of what looked to me at that time like a hag. And she had broken capillaries on her face. She was worn, and she was my build, and she told her story, and she got to the point where I was at that very moment. And then she went on for another 15 years. And I got to see with great clarity that the only difference between that woman and myself was moment by moment by moment by moment. And very soon I was going to be her. And suddenly I realized, oh my God, it's the drink. I drink. It's drinking. It's not the husband or the lover or the job or the country or anything. I drink. And I ran out onto Lexington Avenue, ran into a bar and knocked another couple back. But anyway, I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I entered the rooms, and for the longest time, I didn't know how you knew I was new. The fact that I'd been wearing the same dress for the last 3 months, I had this very highfalutin job. I was the first woman art auctioneer in America, and I was very much in the public eye, and I think it was only this voice that kept me there without being fired. And I just, I always say that I don't have a really bell-clanging reality about my drinking. My drinking was just the slow rotting of the fabric of my life. And I took one step down on the ladder, and the next step didn't look so far, and then the next step, so that by the time I got here and you were patting me on the back saying, "You keep coming back, it gets better," I didn't know what you were talking about. I couldn't see that it was really that bad. I mean, yes, I'd gone through a bad patch. The fact that I had gone through that patch since I was 4 seemed to elude me. But as I said, I didn't know how you knew I was new. I had a lot of coal around my eyes, black coal, because I thought my eyes didn't stand out, and I'd plucked my eyebrows to one line across my hair. I looked like a startled raccoon, and I wore gobs of makeup, and I couldn't be bothered to take it off every night because I was too busy, you understand. I was like Elizabeth I. I just slathered more on every day, and I just was very peculiar. But, however, I want to get through this. I get in the program. You embrace me, you take me in. And it took me about 2 years in here to realize that I had a drinking problem. I thought I'd nipped it in the bud. I thought I'd gotten in here before it got really bad. I thought I'm the sort that could develop a problem, but I don't really have one right now. And aren't I clever that I came in before it really manifested in a very bad way? And I knew I wasn't as bad as you because I heard that some of you had been here 5 years, 10 years, and the really sick ones, oh my God. And I thought, how long does it take to learn that stuff, for God's sakes, So the preamble might be a little tricky, but I think I could get it down. I was an auctioneer, but I'm fast, I'm not slow. And, I'm here 32 years and I'm still trying to get it. So But I would like to, before I start this saga of the last 2 years, I would like to say the thing that I always love to say at a meeting. My sponsor knew I couldn't get in touch with my drinking story, and she didn't force me to do step work or do anything like that. She didn't say anything. She enticed me. She held out the high road for me, and she said to me, "Lorna, if you stay with us and do as we suggest, you will be able to develop a life that will be like having a quiver of golden arrows on your back. And when you come into a situation in life that you're not too sure how to handle, you'll be able to reach back, select the perfect arrow, put it in your bow, thwang, and hit bullseye every time." And that idea of being appropriate in the world, hitting bullseye, was so intoxicating to me. Alcoholics are forever whining, "Oh, I never felt like I fit in. I never felt like I was given the rule book to life, always felt odd." Well, we don't fit in. We are odd, and... So her telling me this, I was like, yes, I want to live my life on the high road. I dealt with works of art. I wanted my life to be a work of art. And I knew somehow that this was how you did it. In here, this is how it happens. And there's so many, I believe that for myself, that the first step is the only step I cannot get perfectly. If I could get the first step perfectly, it would mean I didn't need the other steps. My story is constantly being revealed to me. My alcoholism, the depth of it, the unmanageability of my thinking and my life, and the trickiness and the subtlety of the disease. Anyway, so we start the last 2 years. May 2007, I was driving to Massachusetts. I was going on a 3-week silent retreat. I wanted to sit with this particular Burmese Sayadaw teacher. And I've done a lot of spiritual pursuits since I've been sober. So I'm off to this spiritual retreat. I'm outside Hartford and I have a 5-car pileup. And my car is a total wreck. The insurance kicks in. And long story short, my car is towed, I get another car, and I drive on up the 70-odd miles to the retreat. The retreat is already 2 days underway, and they're walking around silently, meditatively, serenely, and I entered this jagged scream, I've just been in this tremendous accident. And the teachers there, they knew that this had happened to me, suggested that I go to the nearby village the next day to get some body work and some acupuncture. So, once you enter one of these retreats, you're not supposed to be dashing in and out. You're supposed to be staying there. So, but anyway, I got into the car, this rental car that I had, and it had New Jersey license plates, actually. And I go off into the little local village and I have this body work and acupuncture, and I come out and it's a little, my car is parked at the general store, and it's a real New England little town. It has the white clapboard church, the village green, and there was one car parked at the village green that was about 30 feet away from the rear of my car. So I get in my car and very meditatively, serenely and carefully, I backed right into that car. And there were 2 people going into the general store, and I saw them look up at me. So I thought, well, I better pretend that I'm a good citizen. So I got out of the car and gave a cursory look. They went into the store, I got in my car, and I fled. I fled. I was so full of fear and the remembrance of the accident the day before. I just hurtled down that country lane and I screeched into the retreat center. And I'm like, and they're all walking meditatively and silently. And now, I was 31 years sober and I was a hit and runner. So. And, preconceived idea. This was not my idea of my spiritual life. So the following day, I'm sitting on my cushion in the meditation hall, and I'm thinking, I can't do this. What am I doing? My sobriety, I'm 31 years sober. What on earth am I doing? I got up off the cushion, went out of the meditation hall, got back in the car, went back to this little village. And on the way back, I'm begging God, I'm saying, please help me, please help me. Give me the words. I felt like the prodigal son going to the father, I'm going to say this. And I made up my mind I was going to go to the general store and I was going to say the following. Hello. I was backing away from your store yesterday and I hit a parked car, and I'm sure it was someone that was in your store, and I got out and took a look, but I didn't see that I'd done anything, so I just went off. And but when I was looking at my car this morning, I saw there was a slight dent in my fender, so my bumper, fender, whatever you call it. I said, so I thought maybe I had done some damage. That was my plan. And I'm going over and over and over the words. I'm saying the serenity prayer. I'm doing everything. I get to the little village and I think, no, I'm going to the post office. And you don't need to be going to the post office when you're on retreat. There's no reading, there's no writing, there's no nothing. But I thought, I ought to go to the post office. So I went to the post office and I bought some stamps. I'm coming out at this tiny little post office, and coming in like this is a police officer. And as I'm facing him, I said, "Oh, excuse me, officer." And then I recited this story. Yesterday, I was at the blah, blah, da, 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 da. And he said to me, "Do you have Jersey plates?" I said, "Yes." He said, "There's a warrant out for you." So inside, I'm screaming, "A warrant!" And I'm saying, "Oh." And he asks for my license and that, and I give him my license, and he goes off and tells me to sit in the car. He was very nice, told me to sit in the car. And a little while later, it was pouring with rain. He comes back, raps on my window, and he said, "I've just talked to my superior, and we're not going to arrest you, but we'd like you to do blah-de-blah-de-blah." And I'm, inside, I'm thinking, God, they were going to arrest me? They'd probably storm into the meditation hall, yank me off my cushion, clap handcuffs on me, drag me out, and I'd be saying, "But I'm 31 years sober, I'm 31 years sober." And I was so terrified. It took me, 3 or 4 days to sort of even calm down. And here I'd had all these notions about what a spiritual retreat should be like. I've been on many retreats. Anyway, I come back to New York, and I had a mammogram that I had put off because I was going on this retreat. And the mammogram showed some irregularities, and I went, and they asked me to come back for biopsies, and I got a call at the end of June saying, "Miss Kelly, we took 3 biopsies and all 3 are malignant." And 2 years ago yesterday, I had a double mastectomy, and it was what it was. But as soon, I just want to say the program kicking in. As soon as I had this diagnosis, I went, of course, to a meeting. I went to that Lenox Hill meeting, actually, and I said that I've just been diagnosed with cancer. And I said, I'm not the first woman with this news, neither will I be the last. And something's got to take us out. Something has to get us. And, the biggest cause of death is being born in the first place. So, and I have, like I'm here in a different reality. I've been raised from the dead, so I've already died once. I've sort of done that, been there, done that. And I can assure you I wasn't at all frightened about this. It was just sort of something else to go through. And so I had this double mastectomy, and then that was July 31st. And then I'm starting chemo in the September. But in the end of August, I got a call. Now, I've got drains coming out of me and all sorts of things. No, at the end of, yes, in the middle of August or something, I'm out of hospital, I've got all these drains and stuff, and, it's a big surgery. And I got a call that would I please audition for the part of the auctioneer in Sex and the City. So I said, "Oh, all right. I mean, I'm not an actress or anything, but so I go along to this audition. I stagger over to the west side of Manhattan. I do my little auction bit, and I go back, and I thought, oh, well, that was that I did in that day. I was just trying to make the days pass. And a few weeks later, I started my chemotherapy, and after the second round of chemotherapy, one's hair falls out. So I got a call between the first and the second, and they said, "Miss Kelly, we'd like to offer you the part." I said, "You're joking." They said, "No, we'd like to offer you the part." So I said, "Well, I guess I better be up front with you." I said, "I've just started chemo." I said, "How important is my look?" they said, very important. So I said, well, I've just started chemo, and after the second one, my hair's going to fall out. So they said, oh, we'll get back to you. So about 15 minutes later, they called me back, and they said, what they'd done was they rearranged the entire shoot to get me in before my hair fell out. And it was ridiculous because they could have put a wig on me, they could have done something, but anyway. And I have this tiny little part, you know, if you don't bend to pick up your popcorn, you'll miss me. But I do this shoot. I'm in Sex and the City. So ladies, I want to tell you that, you know, I know you're going to be stunned to hear this, but here I am in my 60s, without my breasts, about to lose my hair, and I'm finally a sex object. So, you know, God does have an amusing way of doing things. So then life rolls on, and I do my chemotherapy, and I was supposed to have 8 rounds of chemotherapy, and after 6, I was all right, and then after 6, boom, it hit. And to cut a very long story short, I was in emergency rooms 4 times. I went into hospital. My heart was in trouble. I had another time I went in, I had dreadful pains in my side, and there I was discovered I had blood clots. I had pulmonary problems. They took 1.5 liters of liquid from my lungs, and people were told, if you want to see Lorna, you better get there. She's not going to make it. And the last time I was in, I had pain in my other side, and they were, of course, scanning me because they thought the cancer had spread. It's a very, you know, I had cancer in 3 places, and it was very likely that it could have spread. So they did all these incredible tests on me, and then my oncologist comes bouncing into the room full of glee and said, oh, he said, you do it, all your tests are fine. He said, you have a cracked rib. He said, has anyone been giving you a bear hug lately? I said, excuse me, I'm British. I don't do that. So he said, well, you've got a cracked rib. So there's nothing you can do about cracked ribs, but they, actually, I'm just going to insert this because it's a good place to insert it, actually. I know you think I'm absolutely adorable and imminently huggable, but I would ask if you not hug me. I'm a little cautious about my chest, and it doesn't feel comfortable, so if you wouldn't mind. So he came in and said, you know, you couldn't go because you have this cracked rib and there's nothing we can do about it. Whereupon the cardiologist rushes into the room and says, not so fast, not so fast, her heart is going into failure. So without so much as by your leave or with your leave, they put a defibrillator in my chest. A girl I knew through the Missionaries of Charity, some of you know that I was very involved with Mother Teresa, and an English woman who had just graduated from Cambridge, 24 years old, came over from England. She was on her way to Calcutta, and she thought, no, I'll go and see Lorna. She came over from England to help me, and she moved in with me when I came out from hospital, and she was absolutely fantastic. She absolutely, I can honestly say, saved my life. And I'd been trying to 12-step her for years, and she came to meetings, and it was wonderful to have her. I live in a very small apartment, and I really could not have made it without her. She was in charge of all my medicines and everything. So, here I am, very, very, very ill. And I'm like a horse, I've never been ill. So a friend of mine we're March now of 2008, sorry. a friend of mine invited me down to Naples, Florida for some little bit of sunshine to get out of the asphalt of New York and this thing of having to put on all these clothes all the time. Every time I had to go out, it was very cold. And so I went down there for just over a week, and I said to this young girl, you know, it's wonderful. You can have the run of the apartment. She'd made many friends by that time, was going to meetings, and terrific. And the day before I came back to New York, I called her and chatting, and she said, Lorna, there's something I have to tell you, and I don't know whether to tell you now or when you return. And of course, I thought, you know, the apartment has burned down, or something's happened dreadful. I said, well, you better tell me right now. And it turned out she was sleeping with my cardiologist. I am screaming at the top of my lungs down in my friend's house in Naples, Florida. You're what? I said, you know, this is my heart doctor. It's not my manicurist. And, you know, I'm very sick and my life is on the line and all that. Anyway, I am pounding around my friend's house, out in the backyard, around by the pool, and she's running after me, going, Lorna, get off the phone, get off the phone, get off the phone. I'm this, you know, paragon of an example for her, and now I'm 32 years sober, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. And she, of course, thought I'm going to have a heart attack. So anyway, I come back to New York, the assistant has gone, and I am by myself, and of course my friends rush in to help me. Life goes on, and I had this thing happen, and then I fell down the stairs 3 times, and twice really badly, and hurt myself very, very badly. Then I get better, and I'm getting back to riding, and I'm feeling better and better and better. I was booked to speak on a cruise in October, and a week before I went, I'm walking down the street in New York City on a beautiful, beautiful sunny day. I tripped and broke my knee, and really dreadfully broke my knee. I was in hospital 10 days, and stitches and God knows what, and all sorts of things. That's why I'm sitting on a chair. And I want to thank Rick so much and the committee for allowing me to do this, because what with the defibrillator and the knee, it's I'm a bit of a wreck. But so I have to move into a friend's apartment because I live in a 2 flights walk up, and that's it. And I've had a few minor accidents since then. And I talked to my meditation teacher, and I said, you know, look, I don't know what's going on with me over the last 2 years. I'm either dealing with a lot of dreadful past karma, or else I'm in training to be a messiah. I'm not too sure what's going on. But this is my lesson. These, of course, I learned many, many lessons throughout this period. And one of the greatest lessons I learned was service. And I have always thought, that when one thinks of service, especially for us in AA, it's going to institutions, it's sponsoring people, it's helping people, it's doing some form of obvious help. I learned a different kind of service, and that was allowing people to help me. I'm independent, I'm very capable, and I was rendered totally incapable, what with the mastectomy and the chemo and the defibrillator and the heart failure and the blood clots and the falling down the stairs and the breaking of my knee. I just could not do my life. I could not. And it was Mother Teresa's hardest lesson in her life that she didn't learn actually until the end of her life, and that was allowing others to help her. And, you know, in AA, it's such an important element I found. And I just want to say, I no longer have a private life. People swooped into my apartment. I let them take over my checkbook, do my laundry, do everything. I have no more private life. I don't know how many people have keys to my apartment. I really don't. And they come, they go, and I was very, very, reticent for many years. But allowing others to help me has been such a surrender to me. And also, a few months ago I was in Columbus, Ohio, speaking at a woman's anniversary meeting, and there was a woman there whose son had just been murdered a few days before. And she was there absolutely beside herself, of course, and the whole group was around her, and her service was coming to an AA meeting and allowing us to help her. And I want to say this because I remember being in Toronto and hearing this guy talk, and he said, the message I carry is the message I need to hear. And I need to hear this, that allowing others to help us is a very regal, royal attribute. And allowing others to give to us and to do for us without saying, no, you shouldn't have, and I can do it myself. I think of this as a total sort of mythology image of the king sitting on his throne, and the peasant comes offering his gift, his meager gift. Maybe he offers a chicken or something. And the king does not say, the wise and noble king does not say, a chicken? I don't need a chicken. No, I mean, and you need it more than I do. I mean, take a chicken, it's a nice gesture, but I don't need it. The king graciously accepts it, and in the giving and the receiving, both feel uplifted. And it's taken me, 32 years of sobriety to really get this, and I get it. I get it now, and to allowing that my form of service has been, in the last few years, allowing myself to be helped. I haven't done very much for anyone except get terribly sick, and that's my form of service, and that's one of the things I really, really wanted to say. David is here from Tyler, and he was mentioning to me something in my story he'd like me to say, and I think it's important to say. No, I'm not going to say it, actually. I'm going to say something else. I almost drank in Thanksgiving of last year. And this is what happened to me. I'd been invited to a very Epicurean fancy dinner in Kentucky. And I was, my leg was in a splint. I was on crutches. It was very difficult for me to get down there. And the universe was trying to tell me not to go, but I barreled right ahead and went. It was a 2-night affair, this thing. And how it worked was, and it was a gorgeous home, huge, big, palatial place, very fancy, very lovely. And I thought I had protected myself. I'd called the host beforehand, and I said, I cannot take alcohol in any form. I can't have it in a glass, and I can't have it in food. And I get down there, we're all sitting at this beautiful table, and how it worked was there were 5 chefs, and the little dishes were prepared, and the chef would come out and talk about the dish and why he or she had chosen that particular wine to go with the dish. So it went fine, and I noticed that, my situation was taken care of very beautifully. Nothing was said, but in front of me was always a glass of sparkling water, and I noticed that sometimes my dish was a little different from my neighbor's, and it was because the sauce was different. So we get through the first evening, it's absolutely lovely. the second morning, Saturday morning, I had arranged to go to an AA meeting with a friend of mine in Kentucky. Went to an AA meeting. I'm really covered, right? Second night comes. The same thing goes on. The chefs come out, give this little speech, la la la. The pasta course is served. And the wine is poured, and other people have all this battery of glasses in front of mine. I've got the sparkling water. And all of a sudden, the woman sitting diagonally across the table from me says, "Oh my God, this wine is fantastic. Oh, it's fantastic." And she turns to the host and she says, "Every wine has been superb, but this one is amazing." And then she zeroes in on me and she asks me, "Lorna, are you not drinking?" Which I thought was amazing, because I would have noticed if I wasn't drinking, the first night. And I said, "No, I'm not drinking." And she said, "Well, I don't usually drink, but this wine, what it does to the pasta is amazing," she said, and she was rhapsodizing about this wine. The disease came slithering across the highly polished table, around the cut glass and over the silverware and the Meissen porcelain, and it came up my breast and snuggled into my neck, and it whispered, "Lorna." It's not drinking, it's just enhancing the pasta. And, you won't lose your sobriety. You just want this experience. And I knew I was going to drink. I knew I was going to pick up that wine. And all I had to do was say to one of the servers, "I've changed my mind. I'd like to taste that wine." And it would have been right there. And there was no fear in me. There was no voice saying, "Hey, honey, you're on thin ice. Lorna, watch out. Watch out. This is alcohol." It was like, "No, it's not. It's the pasta." And they say in our literature that there will come a time where nothing stands between you and a drink except your higher power. And in that moment, my higher power was 32 years of sitting in meetings. Nothing I didn't of myself, I can assure you, I did nothing. I was powerless over that alcohol, and my life was unmanageable. But 32 years I'd sat in meetings, and something in my DNA of my AA life took over. And without any consciousness on my part, I leaned back in my chair like this. I put my hands in my lap like this, and I just took a few breaths. And the moment passed. It just passed, without any real knowledge or awareness for me. And I leant forward and I got on with the conversation and got on with the dinner, and I didn't drink, and it went like that. It was gone. And it wasn't till the next day, when I was packing to go back to New York, it was in the afternoon, that whole scenario flashed in my mind. And I was on crutches, and I fell on the bed and I wept. I couldn't believe how close I'd come. I couldn't believe, like that, for pasta, I was going to sacrifice my this gift. And in dissecting it, I took a look at that, of course, and I'd had by that time a year of being in dreadful pain and terrible car accidents, cancer, operations, things, drugs in my system, all that kind of stuff. And I thought I could go to an Epicurean dinner. I had no business being there in the first place. What was I doing taking my beautiful sobriety into an Epicurean dinner? I don't care how grand the glassware was or the wines or whatever. I had no business as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous being there. None whatsoever. And it caught me. You know, I was in a depleted state from my physical life, and it's cunning, baffling, and insidious. And the disease doesn't go, oh, well, you've been through a very tough time in the last 2 years, then we won't bother you for a while. It's like zzz, like a snake. And so that's my story, but I will say that, you know, but I was told to get the alcohol out of my house, and I created a bit about it, but I finally got it out, and I had an accident in my home one day, and I went to get the vodka out, and it wasn't there because I'd done what you told me to do and got it out of my house. And I want to say this, people will often say, well, just because I don't drink doesn't mean to say I want to impose that on my friends. And when my friends come over, I want to be able to offer them a drink. Well, you know, people that don't smoke don't have cartons of cigarettes in their house. And Muslims don't have a side of pork in the deep freeze. And I don't know about you, but I've yet to go to someone's house and they have little piles of cocaine and heroin and the works and the syringes on the coffee table, and they say, well, we don't shoot up, but maybe you'd like to. And I also want to say this, so don't come up to me. Do not come up to me. I'm forewarning you. If people will say, but my spouse drinks, and I'm living with someone that drinks, if that is a loving spouse, they will let go of that alcohol in the house. I have a cousin that has a son, and when he was young, he was deathly allergic to nuts. I mean, so the thing that he'd be taken to hospitals because he couldn't breathe. And there wasn't a nut to be found within 10 miles of that house. And my cousin didn't say, well, that's his problem. The other children are not allergic, so it's all right for me to have nuts. I like to have nuts, so there wasn't a nut in the house. So that's my little thing about that. And we're almost to the time, but I want to talk about some amazing things that I would love to impart, because I know that people like to hear this story. You know, Mother Teresa was I was very close with her, and she was fascinated with Alcoholics Anonymous. Absolutely. All she ever wanted to talk to me about was AA and how it worked and my alcoholism. And sometimes I'd say to her, Mother, are you sure you don't have a problem? You know, you're awfully interested in this stuff. And but she was fascinated because Mother Teresa had success with every form of suffering human. But she could not help the alcoholic. And she could not help the alcoholic because she didn't have the words of everlasting life that you and I have. And those words are, I know how you feel. Let me tell you what happened to me. And when Mother was very ill at one time, we thought she was going to die at that particular time. Anyway, I rushed off to Calcutta, and I was sort of taken from the airport into the hospital room. And I got there, and Mother was in bed. It was a very narrow room, very small. And very shortly after I got there, this young Indian priest came in, and he was going to say Mass. And they set up the table at the foot of Mother's bed, and he was facing her, saying Mass. And there's Mother propped up against the pillow, very reverential. And it's not lost on me that I'm in this private Mass with Mother in her nightie. And it came time for communion. And he came around the side of the bed, and I'm push myself to the side like this. And he dips the host in the chalice of wine. And he gives it to Mother. And Mother very, respectfully takes it on her tongue. And the thought in my mind is, oh God, not here. Please don't let me have to make a fuss here about the wine. Please don't, just take it, Lorna. For this once, there's no one here. Just take the wine. There's this saint dying in bed next to you. And don't bring all the attention onto yourself. Don't, just let it go. There's no one in AA here. No one's going to know. And every so often in life, we're called to be the sensing rod for mankind. We're called to be that thing. Which way will AA go? The Buddha had it under the Bodhi tree. Jesus had it in the Garden of Gethsemane. Bill Wilson had it in the Mayflower Hotel. The church directory or the bar. And hinging on that, heaven holds its breath. Which way will it go? Which way will it go? And heaven never forces itself on us. And I stood there and I thought, just this once, just let me take this wine-dipped host. It's the blood of Christ, after all. Don't think of it as wine. And I thought about all the thousands that have gone before me and all the millions that will hopefully come after me. And it matters what I do. It matters how I choose in the quietness and the hidden moments of my life. And I said, no, I don't want the host dipped. He's already holding up this dripping host to me. And I said, he gave it to the sister standing next to me. And then he went round the bed to give to the other sisters that were squashed on the other side of the bed. And I'm standing there, spiritual life is not always easy and comfortable. I'm standing there feeling very, very awkward and very out of place, and that I've disturbed Mother. And Mother's hand came across the cover, and she took my hand, and she pulled me down to her, and she whispered, "Well done. You must continue to protect your precious gift." So I want to impart that to you. We talk in terms, and I talk in terms of it being a gift. I really find that a little odd, like if I get the gift, why didn't my mother get the gift? And we know loads of people, there's people in this room that are suffering because their children are out there. And there's loads of people that haven't. Is God saying, well, I think Lorna's ducky and I'm going to give her AA? I don't know how that works. I really don't know why I'm here. And but I want to end with this. Some years ago, a few years ago, I wrote a book. And it's all about me. It's absolutely fascinating. Because of this book, I was called to be a witness for Mother Teresa's beatification. And I went to Rome and did all that. And I want to say that when I walked through the doors of AA, you said to me that life would be beyond your wildest dreams. And I can remember thinking, God, I could think of something far wilder than this. It's not very wild. And when I was called to witness for Mother Teresa, it doesn't matter what I think about all that sainty stuff and all the beatification and the church and all that. It's neither here nor there. It was important for her, and she loved me. And it was important that I was a part of this process for her. And I realized when I'd done that it was beyond my wildest dreams. That if I had walked through the doors of AA and you had said to me, Lorna, if you stay sober, you can help this little old lady in Calcutta become a saint one day, I'd be like, oh, please, where's my car? Where's my toaster or my honey or something? And but this being a small part in this major thing was so wonderful for me. And you know, the thing is, it wasn't about my beatification, although, so the fact that it was not about me, it was nothing to do with me, it was all about the other. And you and I are not in here and given this gift for ourselves alone. This is not for us alone. We have to treasure it, shine it, and give it back when we die in a more diamond-like quality. And you know, that's being that, you know, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm a witness to a saint, not too shabby. So, you know, when you said to me life would be beyond your wildest dreams, I imagined money, men, and mansions, and really what it is, it's beyond your tacky, wild dreams, Lorna. Beyond. Into another dimension. And all our dreams are always inclusive of the other. We're never given our dreams for ourselves alone. It's always about the other. So, here we are, gathered on this Saturday night in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And I want to thank you for going to meetings. I want to thank you for doing service, for putting conventions together like this, for doing what you do in your home groups, for all the stuff that you do, for putting money in the basket, for all the service that you do, because if you weren't here, I'd know nothing and I'd have nowhere to go. So I thank you for your sobriety. Thank you.